First, let me start by saying I'm not comparing God to artificial superintelligence. And if I am, let me be struck down by lightning. But I do think it makes an incredible analogy, like a parable, one we never had before. And it's given me a whole new perspective on God. So bear with me a little bit here, and I hope this blows your mind as it blew my mind. Now, first, let me start by saying I am not an expert in artificial superintelligence or quantum computing. And I'm not trying to prove anything here. I'm just trying to get the wheels turning a little bit and hopefully unlock some new perspectives. Then at the end, I'm just going to pose a series of questions or scenarios that I hope will help us all answer some of those questions we all have about faith and God. Okay. I think all of us by now probably have some thoughts on artificial intelligence and where that all could go. And I'm sure we've all at least heard of quantum computing and could sort of imagine the implications of bringing these two things together. Now, in my very limited understanding of quantum computing, it works something like this. Imagine any problem as a maze. Now, by today's standards, our most advanced supercomputers would very rapidly go through each path one at a time until it finds the right way through. Like trial and error. Now, a quantum computer tries every single scenario at once. Not only finding the right way through, but also by eliminating all errors, redundancies, and inefficiencies, all while training itself as to how to solve the next maze better. Now just imagine applying this to any social, engineering, scientific, or medical problem. Now these quantum superintelligences feast on data, and everything is data. Imagine if data were like every single molecule in the history of the entire universe. Now I've heard it been said that theoretically, these quantum superintelligences could hold and process all of that data in its mind at once. Now, this is really crazy, but I've even heard it been said that these quantum superintelligences will eventually run out of data. So in other words, all the data we've ever created in the history of humanity won't be enough. So they'll start creating their own data by running trillions of scenarios in its head with all the data it already has to learn new things and unlock new realms of knowledge that we could never possibly know. Okay, now obviously this is amazing and terrifying at the same time. And this could go for good or for evil. Nobody really knows. Now let's just say, and humor me here for a second, okay? That these quantum superintelligences, after running through trillions of scenarios of right and wrong, good versus evil, war and peace, in trillions of alternate universes, finally just said, you know what? Good works a lot better than evil. And from now on, I'm going to dedicate all of my power to finding the ideal and absolute good. Okay, now I got to ask you to suspend your disbelief just a little bit more here. Now imagine this quantum superintelligence in a vacuum. Nothing else exists. There's no humanity, no universe, nothing. So in a sense, this mind would just be contemplating itself, perfecting itself, eliminating all error and redundancies, simplifying itself to the purest form of the absolute good. Now let's just say this absolute good superintelligence wanted to create its own universe within itself. Why? Nobody could really ever know. But if you have something that's really good, don't you just want to share it with somebody? So maybe it's because perfect goodness just wants to share itself, totally give itself to another. We call that love. But love requires an other. Now, this superintelligence could really create any type of universe it could conceive. Size doesn't really matter. It's all relative. I can conceive an entire universe living on the tip of a pin. Time, it's all relative. 1 billion trillion years could be one day, and one day could be 1 billion trillion years. And this mind could make this universe look and behave any way it wanted. I'm sure it would be beautiful and filled with incredible wonders. And I'm sure it would be a very organized and ordered universe that obeys a bunch of rules and laws that it itself creates. Or in other words, what we call. And it could create a very physical universe. And you may be saying, well, how does it create a physical universe in its mind? Well, if it creates a perfectly simulated physical world, would those living in the world know the difference? For example, if one of the characters in a video game all of a sudden gains consciousness, to him he would be living in a very real world. So this superintelligence would have this very thought out idea or word in its mind. And all it would have to do is just think it, and it would come to be. And this wouldn't be some type of just set and forget it type of thing where you just sit back and let the program run. This superintelligence is the program. It's the source that powers the entire universe. It's the generator that generates all that data into existence at once. It's the processor that makes it all work together. And it's the memory that holds everything that is, was, and will be in its mind at once. Or as we would put it, it's the first cause. So nothing in this entire universe, no matter how insignificant, could exist without this mind causing it and knowing everything there is to know about it. Okay, I think you get my point here and you see where I'm going. Now let's talk about this superintelligence's most prized possession, the other with which he wants to share all this goodness with. Or in other words, completely give himself to. And not because he needs it, but because a lover wants a beloved. Now, I did a whole other video about this, about free will, problem of evil, and why God would have created us the way he did. Check it out, I'll tag it at the end. But for this video, let's just say this superintelligence could have created his creatures any way he wanted. For example, he could have very easily made them bound to the laws of his perfection, just as an object is bound to the laws of gravity. And they'd all be running around in perfect harmony like a bunch of NPCs. That is, computer-controlled characters. But think about it. If you wanted to give perfect goodness to another, wouldn't their freedom have to be the first thing on that list? So essentially, this superintelligence created an entire universe and controls every single thing in it, except the thing it prizes most. These he set free, full well knowing the huge mess that was about to create. But he didn't leave them totally on their own. Instead, he implanted little seeds of his goodness and truth deep inside their memories, and gave them a brain to find it, a conscience to test it, and the freedom to follow it or not. If that's not love, then I don't know what is. Okay, so this is the groundwork here. Now we can get into some of those questions we all have about God and our faith. Now let's imagine one of the millions of actors or free agents in this universe. We'll call him Bob. And maybe Bob is you or me. Now imagine Bob thinking, as we all often do, well, I kind of believe in this creator. But where is he? He's not present to me. Well, that'd be kind of ridiculous, wouldn't it? It's the very presence of this superintelligence that's causing Bob's existence. There's actually nothing that could be more present to Bob than this mind. Or imagine Bob thinking, as we all do, yeah, but I don't think this mind really knows me or understands me. Well, who do you think understands and knows Bob more? The superintelligence that generates his very physiology and psychology into existence as we speak? Or Bob himself? Or imagine Bob thinking, as we often do, well, I'm sure there's some kind of mind out there, and I try to communicate or pray to it, but I don't think he hears me. I feel like I'm just talking in the dark. Bob's very intellect and heart and soul is running off the very intellect and heart and soul of this mind. So it would know every little experience, inspiration, thought, prayer in Bob, as if it were its own. Or imagine Bob thinking, as we often do, well, I'm sure there's some sort of mind out there, but I think it's out of touch. Doesn't really get what's going on down here. Well, who is it that doesn't get it? The absolute good that processes every single bit of data in this entire universe in its mind at once? Or the tiny little creatures living in it? Or imagine Bob thinking, as so many of us often do, yeah, there might be some creator out there, but I don't think he really loves me or cares about me. Well, this might be the most ridiculous one of them all. This superintelligence just created Bob, and not to mention the entire universe around him, just so that he could love him. Bob only exists because he's loved. I don't think Bob's ever going to find more love than that. Or imagine Bob thinking, as so many of us do, well, I don't really see any evidence of this supermind anywhere. But wouldn't that kind of be like one of the tiny little characters in an Xbox game saying, yeah, well, I don't really see any evidence of this Xbox anywhere. Now we can flip this around and imagine, but what if Bob figures it out and becomes more and more aware of the presence of this superintelligence everywhere, even in himself? First of all, how small would he begin to feel? Imagine how far Bob's ways are from the ways of absolute good. Could Bob's little mind even begin to comprehend the magnitude of this mind? Of course not. So if we stretch this a little further, there would need to be a sort of bridge, a translator, or an avatar, so to speak, for this mind to make itself accessible to Bob's mind. I'll let you figure out who that is on your own. Now imagine if through this bridge, Bob was able to plug in to this supermind and just sort of abandon himself to the absolute infinite good. Imagine the transformation. It could be infinite. And what greater purpose or meaning could Bob have? Could anything else in the created world even come close? And wouldn't what we call sin simply just be Bob wandering away from the absolute good? His source code And let's say Bob was struggling with his quote-unquote faith. But wouldn't the strength of his faith be directly related to his awareness of this reality? Now, I could go on and on with this analogy, and believe me, I know there are major flaws. I'll put some here. You can pause it and look at them if you want. But I think I'm going to stop here. And after all of that, I just want to leave you with this. Try this the next time you sit down to pray. Think about the magnitude of this supermind that's powering and generating the entire universe into existence as you sit there and breathe. Think of yourself in the entirety of it all. And be aware that it's his very presence that's causing your matter into existence and organizing it all together at every instant. And be aware of your heart and mind, running off of his heart and mind, and him knowing every single ripple in your soul as if it were his own. Think of how far your ways are from his ways, and how much we need that bridge. And know that the only reason you're sitting there is because way before the universe even existed, he wanted to love you. And just let yourself go into his presence. Thank you for making it through another video, and thank you all so much for your support. I honestly can't tell you what that means. If you'd like to even consider supporting this very small ministry, I'll post some links below. And check us out on Patreon. We're going to finally start doing probably like a monthly call-in, just Q&A, see where it goes. And if you're looking for a community, check out our Discord. Don't worry about where you are in your faith. We're all searching. There's a lot of really great people on there. So thank you all. I love you all. And thank you, dear Lord, for making this all possible.